Hello and welcome. Hi everyone. Hello. As you come into the chat, let me know if you can hear me. Hopefully everything is working with sound. I realized at the start I needed to put the cable in, so it was a little bit funny at the start. But here we are. Hello and welcome. Lots of people in the chat. Welcome to the weekly chat. We do this every Tuesday, and we have a new time for 2022, which is on a Tuesday somewhere around 10 a.m. And I say that because we've usually got a lot occurring in the shelter around that time, and sometimes there's a little bit of a juggle to get here. But we've changed this time so that we can be more in tune with our audience, which is largely overseas here on YouTube. So yes, welcome as you come into the chat. Let me just get the chat on the screen. Hi Tyken. Hello Dawn. Yvonne. Thank you, yes. Hi Karen. Fantastic. Okay, everyone can hear me. All right, today's chat, we're going to talk about guinea pigs that are very sick and possibly dying, and this is something that you will face at some point if you have pet guinea pigs, and we need to look at some of the things that you can do and how you need to address that. Now, most of you that follow along will have been watching Sparkle's story. Sparkle was a guinea pig that came to us 4 weeks ago, heavily with mange. She had been bred back to back, and she was on possibly her 6th or 7th litter, so in a row, heavily compromised, and she was actually being overseen by one of the best exotic vets we have here in Sydney. So she was a really delicate, fragile little girl that we had in care, and just over 24 hours ago I set up Sparkle Cam to enable you to watch her because she was getting very close to her delivery date. Part of the reason I didn't do that beforehand was that we have had piggies in that situation where things can go a little bit belly up towards the end of their term, and we haven't actually lost one. She's the first that we've lost, but she also was the most severe in terms of her condition and state of health with delivery of with delivery and being pregnant. But we have had guinea pigs that literally, as they give birth at that time, they're almost all naked and they literally start to have seizures, but they then start to tear at their skin even more ferociously. So you can have guinea pigs that are looking really quite okay, but literally that birthing process then triggers this intense scratching that goes on. But yeah, so we've had that happen in the past. So it's not always the perfect ending when you've got animals that are so highly compromised. Now with that live stream, it was actually set up at 4 a.m. in the morning, our time. And at the time I set it up, I thought, well, she looks like she could be getting very close to the window of delivery, but it's also a time to share with you some of the things that we experience here in rescue. So at 4 a.m. in the morning, I set that live stream up and was there for a little bit. I was a little bit concerned with her thermoregulating. She was not as warm as she would normally be. So I actually gave her a warmth pad, which is something we do for comfort in case she wanted to be on that or to move off that. So there was a little sign that something was going on there, a little abnormally, but nothing that would indicate the severity of what was to happen later. And this is something that you too can face. So literally it was just on 2 hours into the stream when she then took a seizure. And you can actually go back and check that video. You can watch what actually happened, but she had a seizure and she rolled out. She was then on her back upside down. And I guess one of the powerful things about the internet is that even though she was inside our house, inside the piggy room, within 4 rooms of where I was sleeping, the power of the internet enabled one of the followers here, Rotating Koala, thank you so much, for phoning me, because I kept the phone right beside me, because I knew if something happened, if she was going to litter or she was, anything would happen, someone would contact me. And Rotating Koala did that. She called me to let me know what had happened. But in that process, which was about 15 minutes before I was reached, I then rushed out, picked her up. 10 minutes later, she had gone. So it all happened within a very short space of time for her. And it's devastating, absolutely devastating, because, she's a little animal that was so close to not ever having to go through that again, and so close to fully recovering, and then something like that happens. So these things we often can't help. So I wanted to talk more on that today. With regard to the live stream, I've actually left that up, and there were some interesting comments on there, obviously, who have not followed the story, but comments saying, how dare this animal be left, how is it not being picked up, blah blah blah. The reality is that you also, with your pets, will go to bed and if something happens while you are sleeping, you will have the exact same scenario. So with what happened to Sparkle, she actually had the best care ever, in the sense that you were my eyes while I was sleeping. So within 15 minutes of something happening, I was reached around the world. Rotating Koala, I believe, is in the UK. You'll have to correct me. But, amazing that within the same environment here, someone from the other side of the world was able to phone and say, this is occurring right now. So, again, the power of the internet. But she had watchful eyes on her the whole time, which was another reason I thought the live stream would be very beneficial to her should anything happen in one direction or another. Hi Lilith, how are you, from Belgium? Hi V Baker, hello and welcome. So yes, a really devastating scenario, but also one that we all need to face when pets pass away, because you have such an attachment to them, emotionally and otherwise, that it takes a really great toll. Now here in Rescue, we of course see a lot more than what you would do, and in particular if you're looking after your animals and don't have, you have vets that are involved to see that they're kept healthy, you're looking at the right housing and you're looking at the guidance that we put out, then you become so attached to them over time. Absolutely, you love them. And with us, we have them for such a short time. For us, it was only 4 weeks with her, and she's very close to my heart with that. Oh, let me just put my phone on silent. Okay, so as we go through, if you have any questions, please pop them into the chat, and I'll come back to that from time to time and we can address those issues. So let's talk about Sparkle first, because that occurred at just on 6 a.m. It was about 6:10 or 6:05 in the morning. Hello, Dang. Hi. I know. Thank you. So, yeah, so it was about 6:10 in the morning here. Now, she was being overseen, as I've mentioned, by one of the best exotic vets, who is Alex Rosenwax here in Sydney. And she had been doing terrifically well. Nothing was untoward. Everything was on track in terms of her continuing on that journey, which was really good. But at 6 a.m. in the morning, the closest we are by car here to any vet is about 40 to 50 minutes. And at the moment, they don't have walk-ins. So that's one of the scenarios. They do have we have a couple of vets that have 24-hour care, but the people who are actually staffing the early morning or early during the night shifts tend to be either vet nurses or a general vet. They are not exotic vets. And I've actually phoned to confirm this. We've had this happen once years ago, but yeah, there is no exotic vet on there. Several years ago, in fact, we had to have an exotic vet woken urgently to come in. But even then, you're looking at a time delay of nearly 2 hours from the minute you see the original vet until the exotic vet can arrive. So that window of time is really quite enormous. If we look at what happened to Sparkle, within 25 minutes she'd left. So there was little time to actually do anything with her. With regard to emergency care, it's really important to know that there is time delay involved. So if you do have a really sick guinea pig, you need to act very quickly in terms of getting help, if that help is going to, in fact, I guess, assist them in survival. Now, in the instance with Sparkle, she had, and we'll just go through her issues at the time. She was having massive seizures from the abdomen, and she had massive intense pain with that. She was, from the minute I picked her up, she was arching right over in massive pain from the abdomen, but she also could not breathe. She was gasping to breathe. And when an animal can't breathe, they're not getting the right amount of oxygen, and that in itself affects other parts of the body like the heart, and they go into what we call tachycardia, which is then stress on that area where essentially you can have a heart attack. And I believe that's what finally happened in those last few minutes for her. You cannot struggle without oxygen for a long period of time. So for her, that was really the most vital aspect of what she was going through. The pain associated with that, little could be done there because she was gasping. Although we have meloxicam here and pain relief, any sort of oral medication would be breathed straight in because she had no control over her swallowing mechanism at that point of distress. So she was in a really horrendous state, and it's heartbreaking to go through that. So what can you do? Well, the first thing is to assess the severity of the animal, and I guess a large part of what she was going through stems from my experience with other animals and seeing all sorts of states of animals, and in particular wildlife, where we deal with them at a very critical stage. So you get to assess that. We have a means of checking things here. We can provide fluids, we can provide all sorts of things here, but at the end of the day, in that very short window of time, it was not enough to get on top of what was going on, what was occurring at all. So yeah, the situation was very dire. The fact that she was not thermoregulating, she was warm, but just not quite as she needed to be, indicated something may be amiss. But you could also put that down to her about to litter, about to give birth, because at the time that can occur with guinea pigs, particularly if they've gone through a lot, even the pups stop moving, so that there's no movement that can be felt there. So, you know, these sorts of things happen pre-birth. So it's the sort of situation where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. In terms of intervention at that stage, not a lot also would be done because of the sheer fact that she was so heavily pregnant. So there'd be no intervention actually given with an animal like that. In terms of euthanasia, which is another serious part that we need to address when you have unwell animals, euthanasia is done by injection, and it is done only with a vet, only at the, with a vet in that situation. You can have vets that will come to you, but certainly at that time, that is not anything that's available to us here. We have had vets come here directly to the shelter, but at 6 a.m. in the morning, that's not an option. And they can then euthanize an animal with what we call green dream. It's effectively a medication that will very quickly stop the heart from functioning, and it works very quickly so that the animal can go to sleep peacefully. Now, with regard to euthanasia, normally people consider that when they have animals. What is going on out there? We have a neighbour here, so I'm not sure. So euthanasia is something normally addressed at end stage, or oh, give me one sec. Hey Tim, I'm doing a live stream. Could you mind? Sorry. So with regard to euthanasia, that's something that is done usually at the end of life, or when animals are suffering from a long-term illness and you have vet management of that occurring. Sorry guys, you're being picked up. Okay. We have a really big shed which is being put up, and I think there's a bit of work going to be done with that, which is good. So a bit of a sidetrack, sorry. So let's get back on top. Let's have a quick look at the chat here. Let's see if we have any questions in there. Of the needle, time is indeed important. Yes. Yeah, so when we talk about that, we're referring to euthanasia and green dream. And what do you do when a guinea pig has seizures? We have medication that we can give for that. And she was actually on that 4 weeks ago. But the sort of seizure that she was having was not that's caused from mange. It was definitely something abdominally causing her massive pain. So it may well have been that one of the pups had died. Some of the questions we had around Sparkle were, did I try and do anything to save the pups? Were the pups saved? The pups had stopped moving at that stage, but there is no way that I will attempt to rescue any pups while an animal is alive. So that is just that's a no-go zone. Because of pain management, you need proper anesthetic, you need all sorts of things on board, so that's not an option. But after she had passed, literally, I then tried to have a look. I even tried, if anyone's seen on YouTube, there was a little squirrel that someone had found, and they tried to resuscitate the squirrel. You know, sadly, I was working with those little pups. So, yeah. Okay. All right. So just try and recompose. Okay, let me show you some of the medication. I'll go and get that. We do use, there's two different types that you can give. There's children's versions of antihistamine, and they're very effective when guinea pigs are having seizures related to mange, effectively. And I'll go and get one of those and show you, so that you can take a look. I'll share it with you in a minute. In that situation, there was definite abdominal issues. This was not coming from anything to do with mites. She didn't have those. That had all been treated, and it's also not, the sort of seizure she was having was very different. It was not related to sensitivity on and around the skin as it is with mites and mange. It was definitely abdominal. So she had massive abdominal pain that was suddenly occurring. So yes, she did have 4 pups. So as a result, all 5 were lost. What can cause seizures? Anything internal. And I actually suspect from what I saw that she had a blockage. So when I went back through the video, and you can do this too, when I went back through the video, she actually had the seizure while she was in the pouch. It was before she actually went onto her back. So if you look carefully, you'll actually see that occur. And I believe she had a twisted bowel. She was actually the noisiest guinea pig that we had here in the shelter and in the rescue. And by far, she had quite a voice. So it's a voice I'm missing. But she had, in the early morning, she was sort of snuggling up, but that was very normal for her too. So there was nothing that sort of stood out other than a slight temperature differentiation. And you know, sometimes you can get only that much of an indication something is about to occur. So you don't have much of a window. Now, if you have a guinea pig that is unwell in the middle of the night, like Sparkle, it really does depend where you are in the world as to what you can do in terms of veterinary care. Veterinary care is always the first option. And the first thing we were doing, I had her settled on my lap and I was contacting to see where we could go. Sash was the only location closest to us. That's the small animal hospital, but they didn't have a vet on hand that was an exotic vet, and certainly we would want that for her. But in the 10-minute window that we had, we didn't even have time to get into the car, let alone to get to the vet. So, you know, you have very, very limited time there. But we're fortunate in Sydney in that we do have a couple of locations that can see people fairly quickly. So within 40 minutes of travel time, you can be with the vet, and depending on who they're seeing, I've been at Sash in all times of the night, and they've got people there who are, you know, they've brought in sick cats, sick dogs, all sorts of animals. So you may think it's the middle of the night and nothing else is happening, but at those locations there's always something happening. So it then depends on when you can be seen and assessed by a vet. Usually in that instance they will take the animal out the back right away and then work with them. Now the Rona has changed everything in the last year and a half, because that ability just to walk in and be seen relatively quickly has slowed right down, because we're all having to be super, super careful. Here in Sydney right now, we have a massive outbreak again. So I'm in the shelter here on my own. And we, you know, for a few volunteers who are watching out there, I know that you have been unwell, and I hope that you're all doing super, super well. With this, we have, you know, we know lots of people who this is affecting, and it's very much, you know, in and around us right now. But in terms of veterinary care, you can't just walk into a vet, even though your animal is on the, you know, its deathbed. You cannot physically get immediate care that's going to change necessarily the outcome. So what do you do? The first thing is you make them comfortable. So in the instance with Sparkle, I had her on a pad on my lap, comforting her, and my first concern was trying to get her in the right position so she could breathe. And it wasn't working, because she just physically, she was gasping. She could not get enough air in quick enough. So I was trying to do that in between these awful seizures that she had. And we're talking again about a 10-minute window. Prior to that, you may have noticed one of these go into her cage. This is a snuggle safe pad. And if you've got animals that are unwell, that are not thermoregulating, you need to provide them with a heat source. So these are fantastic, but you also need to know how warm you're actually making these. So she had one of those in there, but it only had a minute in the microwave. So it was just enough warmth that I could easily just touch. It was just warm, coming through the same temperature warmth that you'd get from a body. So making an animal comfortable is the first thing. Being able to this is outside of not being able to get to a vet, because I stress, if you can get to a vet in any urgent situation, you need to. So making them comfortable as possible, positioning them so that it can assist them as much as possible. So if they have, for example, let's say a bite wound. We've had people contact us where animals have been attacked by a fox, has gotten into the cage, or something horrendous has happened. A bite wound can mean broken bones, internal injuries, crush injuries. The damage can be massive. And again, I stress, a vet is what is required. But in terms of making that animal comfortable, that is one of the first things you need to do. If there is any external bleeding, trying to stop the bleeding. So it depends again on what the issue is at hand as to the immediate first aid action you can give. But trying to alleviate and bring calm to that animal at the most stressful point in its life is a very challenging thing to do. If you are looking after an animal that has a long-term illness like cancer, you will have medication with you, and I certainly would hope that your vet has provided you with pain relief. And in terms of a management plan that they've discussed with you what is likely to occur. Because in final stage health issues like that, it can result in like renal failure, heart failure, organ failure of some description. And while it can occur in a relatively quick time frame, like with Sparkle, we had 10 minutes from when I got there. She had literally about 26 minutes from when she had that first seizure. So, that's a very short time frame dealing with an unwell animal. But let's assume that you have an animal that is being overseen by a vet, but it is nighttime or at a time that you can't access them right away. What do? You make them comfortable, you follow the vet plan that they've given you, and you try and stay as calm as you possibly can as well throughout that process. Just jumping back to the chat, Jay. Okay, so Jay asked, if we've been able to contact you sooner, do you think there would have been no, there wouldn't, Jay, simply because of the time frame. So it takes 40 minutes for us to get to any vet, door to door, 40 minutes, any vet. And if you look at the live stream, within 26 minutes from the first sign, she had gone in 26 minutes. So it took roughly 16 minutes before someone on the live stream rang my phone. So within 16 minutes, and I got straight up and I went straight to her. And then I had her with me for 10 minutes before she left. So the live stream, I think, is very important to leave, and because it shows you what can occur with an animal and the time frames that you're dealing with. You often hear that guinea pigs can become very unwell very quickly and pass very quickly. That's an example of what can occur. And it's desperately sad because there's nothing that we could have done to change that. There's no medication that we could have instantly provided her with. Possibly, I'm just trying to think, possibly, it would have had to come from the vet, it would have had to been injectable, it would have been something along the lines of massive pain relief. But with an animal that is so compromised already with their breathing, when you give them massive pain relief, you're also doping down their senses, which can actually worsen that. So I actually do not think there was anything we could do with her whatsoever, regardless if she was with a vet or not. The only thing that would have changed was an immediate C-section, and that's why I was desperately phoning to see if we could literally just take her somewhere. So we would have lost her, but potentially saved the young. So the C-section would have been the best outcome in that scenario. And that's not something that I can do. But the minute she had passed, and we have stethoscopes here, we have all sorts of things, so I knew she had passed. I immediately then attempted to get those young, but they had passed. So Now, whether they had actually passed or one of them had died, and that's what actually triggered the whole thing, that's also another possibility. So we don't know which actually occurred first. But in terms of the live stream, I'm going to leave that there because I think it's important for people to be able to see what can actually happen. It also shows you what we go through as a rescue, because we deal with animals around the clock, and around the clock, I mean, it was 4 a.m. when I set that stream up, 4 a.m. You know, the hours that I keep here are massive, absolutely massive. And in the just on 2 hours sleep that I did get, we then had something catastrophic happen. So things do happen. It's also the scenario that you would hear when people jump into a forum and they say, I came home and my guinea pig has died. Or I've been asleep, I woke up and my guinea pig had passed away and I don't know why. This is the sort of thing that can occur, and in a way, to understand that the time frame is relatively short for Sparkle is a kind of thing to me, because the idea that animals are suffering long term is never an option, and that's why I tell you the first course of action is a vet. So she had the very best in terms of vet care. Absolutely. So yeah, contact me sooner? No, because even had you contacted me at the point that she had the first seizure, which was the first sign, had that happened, literally that was 26 minutes. It takes us 40 minutes to get to any vet before even being seen. Yeah, the stream is very upsetting. At least it definitely needs a trigger warning. I worry about kids watching it. Oh, thank you, Rotating Koala. And you contacted me. Thank you so much. Thank you. I kept my phone beside me. I actually thought about putting my phone directly into the stream, but because this goes around the world, I thought, well, maybe that's not the best thing, but it is all over social media, so my number is on there. And I did keep it beside me specifically because I knew if something happened, someone would contact me for sure. Yeah, it's very stressing. I've actually changed the text in there. We can't modify the video as such. We can't go and edit the video, but in the text below I have done that. I might actually amend the heading to put a trigger warning in the heading. That's a good idea. I will do that. So, but I think it is important to leave it there. Yeah, very, very sad outcome. And look, we see a lot of heartbreaking things. We do. We have a lot that we face. There was a rescue that we had here once with 80 guinea pigs that were transported, and this is going back, oh heavens, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, a long time ago. We knew they were coming in. The lady wanted to transport them here. She popped them in one carrier, and it was a very hot day. Here in Sydney, we can get temperatures above 40, so it can get very extreme. And we had a team of people waiting here. We had one of the very high level fellows from Animal Liberation, a personal friend of mine was here. We had lots of, a big team here waiting for their arrival. And when they arrived, it was horrific, absolutely horrific. We went into first aid mode, crisis mode, because she had literally put them into a cage which fitted the size of the back seat. She thought there was enough room for all of them, and she had no air conditioning in the car, and the journey was about an hour and a half. So they all piled on top of each other. Some of them were heavily pregnant. It was horrendous. We literally were pulling them out of the car as quick as we could. We had a massive crash team in operation. I was explaining to people what to do. We had fluids on the run. We had, it was a full-blown emergency, and that was simply because of the transportation issue that was chosen by that person. It was horrendous. So, she did not intend to do that. She was very distressed by that. She thought she had it okay, but guinea pigs do pile on top of each other, and in that instance, the ones that are underneath were trapped. So, if you're ever transporting them, you have them in smaller groups of 6 or 8 within a cage space where they can all move in an environment that is air conditioned, that is not got direct sun on it. Like everything that went wrong with that rescue. But there were about, of the 80, I think it was 6 or 10. It's a number of them had died. Yeah, it was desperately sad. There's actually a video on it, I think, but you're going back many years to see it. So it's one of the big rescues, a devastating rescue. Yeah. Ah, right. So rotated koala dived in literally about 10 minutes after. You had to, yeah, we were talking about this before, rotating koala, that literally there was no warning with her whatsoever until that seizure. And then for those that were watching, if you follow the chat stream, you can see people trying to work out what's she doing. Will she get up? She's going to roll over. Will this happen? So by then you've even lost 3, 4, 5 minutes. And rotating koala said that she looked 10 minutes into that. At 16 minutes, I was woken around the world. You know, incredible technology that I can be woken from sleep quickly to say there's something going on. I jumped out of bed, went straight to her. So, but by then we had 16 minutes behind, and then 10 minutes later she'd gone. In fact, I don't think it was even 10. It's probably closer to 9 if you look at the stream. It was, yeah, we didn't have long. Yeah, desperately sad. So, but thank you so much for reaching out to me as well and doing that, because that's the power of social media, isn't it? It's what we can do, which is wonderful. So, in terms of death of an animal, that can be a very difficult thing for people to deal with. We deal with it, I won't say often, because we don't have deaths often, but we do see a lot of traumatic things. But a lot of people will then choose to, you know, what do you do with the body? Do you show that to the other members of the family? So if you've lost a guinea pig, do you then show that to the other guinea pig? Do you, and these are very delicate questions, and in every situation it can be a bit different, because if the animal, for example, well, actually, I'm just thinking about contagious things that it may have died from. But again, if it's spent a few days away from, like in a hospital environment, and it has had a contagious pneumonia, you would not take that animal back to see the partner because of the possible spread of infection. But if the animals had been together, and at the point, you know, you rushed one to the vet, it passed away, certainly bring that animal back and lay them with the other guinea pig. They do know. They know that their friend, that something has happened to them. They do know that they're no longer there. So that's an important stage if they're a part of a herd. In terms of your own grief, a lot of people then look at whether they want cremation, which is a service that most vets actually offer, or burial, or I'm just trying to think of other options. I think cremation and burial are the two main things. Oh, the other is vet. The vet can actually dispose of the pet for you. So that's another option. And people are all different in their opinions and how they would like to deal with that, because it does impact on their own grief. In terms of cremation, a lot of people opt for that, particularly if they're renting, because they don't have an area, or if they're in a unit, they don't have an area to actually bury. But you can, I believe, go to different parkland areas and do that. But then the thought, I think one of our members here, Brenda, had something heartbreaking happen with that, and yeah, that's a separate story. I'll let Brenda tell that separately. But yeah, when you do bury animals on land that you don't own, you don't necessarily know what will then happen. So there's all sorts of considerations, and it's one that you need to choose for yourself. Jay says it's important to know your piggies also, so you see any sign that's out of the ordinary. Absolutely, Jay. And look, with her, with Sparkle that night, her temperature was just not quite where it needed to be. And that's why I was checking on her. That's why I was there till 4 a.m. in the morning. That's why, that's why it was the way it was, because I was just, checking on her. She was eating, she was pooping, she was a little bit quieter, definitely a little bit quieter, but it also was 4 a.m. and feeding had been several hours before. So she'd eaten heaps. I made sure she had everything there. So yeah, knowing your animals, and in terms of an animal that is going to go into labor, and they do go into labor prematurely, for her, looking at the pups, she definitely had another half a week away. We can tell that by the state of the hair length and hair growth. So she did have a little bit longer in the term. She may have had some type of early labor stage onsetting, but there was no contractions occurring in her abdomen, just this massive abdominal seizure that was occurring. So so again, little knowing your animal, it's a big part of knowing something is just not quite as it should be. For us, it was, is she about to go into labor? Is she not? We had her for 4 weeks, so we didn't have an exact date on time frame in terms of the litter. So was this about to occur? Is everything right? Is her heart rate right? Her heart rate was fine, so all those things were checked. Her temperature a little bit off, but nothing that I would worry about. Nothing nothing untoward. You would expect that scenario if an animal were a little bit cooler and had no hair. So everything on track there. Jojo says the Humane Society here does cremation for the community. Do they charge for that, Jojo? Is that something they charge for? There must be a cost attached to that. I know that with the vets involved, there are different costs. I must say I was recently horrified by a euthanasia quote that someone was given by a vet, and it was $200 for a guinea pig. I'm sorry, that is just wrong. So that was the quote that they were provided. That is just horrific. Usually here with the vets that I work with, that might be $30 or $40. We've had maybe we're a non-euthanasia shelter, so in the time that I've been here, maybe 5 to 7 guinea pigs have had euthanasia. Extremely poor. So extremely low, but that would be a decent price for that. But again, if you have an animal that's in this situation where it's absolutely dire, you can't go from vet to vet obtaining a second quote. Like, that is just unheard of. But I was horrified to hear that there was a vet actually charging that amount. So that's devastating. I mean, it's horrific that anyone's going through that, but that is outrageous as well. Vicky, thanks everyone said that's a very good age for a guinea pig. Thanks everyone said that's a very good age for a guinea pig. I'm not sure what you mean, Vicky. Not sure. Let's see. So sorry, Vicky. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. So you just lost your guinea pig. I'm sorry. On Friday, she was nearly 7. Do you mind telling us, Vicky, what happened with her? Did you simply come and find that she had passed? Or was something wrong with her? And that's what we were talking about with the importance of that stream, to share with people how quickly things can turn. Okay, so Janet Mary, you say it's £70. That's see, that's 140 Australian dollars, which is, I think it's outrageous. I do. But I guess what I've also noticed in the last few years, that pricing on everything has just gone through the roof. Absolutely through the roof. And there's a number of reasons for that. There are a number of reasons for that, but it's, it does make it extremely challenging for a lot of people. Okay, so Jay says that's what vets here in Canada charge, about the same. Okay. Yeah, you may or may not have noticed a lot of veterinary practices have been being bought out by larger groups. So Green Cross Vets is one of those. So they've actually, the individual vet practice has actually been bought out by these larger groups. And a lot of people who have attended their vet for years and years don't realize it has been sold and it's now owned by a larger corporation, because what they tend to do is have an agreement where they keep in place the owner of the practice and maybe some of the staff. It might be part of the agreement, but for a time, so that everything seems to be the same to customers who are going in. It absolutely seems the same. But the one thing that does start to change is that the pricing changes and the way that they see people changes. So for us, we really don't get a discount, sometimes 10%, sometimes 20% a discount. We really pay as much as anyone in terms of veterinary care. But and we have amazing vets that work with us. They go out of their way to help us, which is fantastic as well. But for a lot of people, they don't realize that this is going on in the background, and it actually changes the appointment time. So where they may have had a half-hour time in the past, they'll then be fitting more into a 15-minute appointment, and it's more to do with the overall practice new rules that are coming in. So yeah, the vet environment has changed considerably over the last few years. In terms of exotic vets, one of the fabulous aspects is that some exotic vets are working in practices that are not known as exotic vet practices. So they may have trained as an exotic vet, but they're not necessarily working in an exotic vet practice. And if you do ask questions about your vet, you can ask, is there a particular day or a time during the week that you may have a vet on board that is trained as an exotic vet? And this is good for future planning with your animals, that you then know who the go-to is. Like, where are you going to go for help? Who is the person that you're going to speak with? We have a vast number of vets that we work with here. And yeah, again, the biggest problem is in the middle of the night. It's like sick children, if they're going to get sick right in the middle of the night. And you just think, oh my goodness, how did that happen in the middle of the night when everything is really quiet? But when you do get to emergency vet locations like SASH, which is a small animal hospital here, it's got quite a few things going on. You'll find you're not the only people attending there needing help. Yes. Okay, so Jojo's just confirming that. Yeah, most vets are now employees, correct. And look, without going into a whole lot of detail, I know that can be a very challenging environment for vets as well, because becoming trained as a vet, there are, of course, enormous fees in the background of that. And then to get those practice years, most of those roles as an employee, they're sort of locked into this lower salary income base, which makes it difficult and challenging when they've got animals that, they would normally want to go out of their way to help. But there's often restrictions on time, on cost, on, it's heartbreaking. I think it would be absolutely heartbreaking to be a vet in that regard. Really, really difficult and challenging. But we have extraordinary vets that do have big hearts, that work very hard, and things are certainly changing. In terms of payment, now this is a question that comes up in our forum quite a bit. People will contact the group and say, I can't afford a vet. This is what's happening. Heartbreaking. Most vets today offer vet pay, which is a process by which you can repay later and get animals help up front. And there are some issues. I was speaking with a lady yesterday by phone there are some issues that just have to be dealt with by a vet immediately. Situations that require antibiotics, situations that require surgery or surgical intervention, they need a vet right away. And there are some types of surgery that are very invasive and very costly. So as an example of that, if we talk about bladder stones, now bladder stone surgery here is going to be somewhere upwards of $1,500 for bladder stone surgery, and in my experience they reoccur. Now we've been down that path, we've had those surgeries, and there are times when they will recur, but for many families, particularly at this time of the Rona, it's not affordable to have suddenly a $1,500 bill. And in that situation, euthanasia needs to be considered. So it's not wrong. What is wrong is not to give the animal help. If you're not giving that animal help and you can't provide pain relief so that the animal can be completely comfortable, the animal must be provided pain relief so they are comfortable and that they can live and exist well. If you're not able to do those two things, you need to consider euthanasia. So it can be considered a kind option, because financially we don't expect that everyone can do that. I know that sounds really awful, because a lot of people want to say, well, you know, vet pay, you have to pay it off. But there are people in extreme debt. There are people who will not be accepted by vet pay. There are those sorts of situations. So that's where we have to say, look, be kind to the animal. Don't let that animal suffer. You need to consider euthanasia. Really difficult subjects. Okay, Crazy Lazy. We've got so many people in the chat as well. Say hi as you're coming in. Let me know where you're from. 12 months ago, my girl passed away within minutes. I took her out to give her morning meds. She snuggled down into my arms and softly drifted off moments before she was up and active. Yeah, situations like that with organ failure can be like that, and it is very fast, can be very, very fast. I do believe that with Sparkle, she actually had a heart attack, because everything was she was I just don't think her heart sustained what she was going through. She certainly had lack of oxygen. She could not breathe. She had something massive going on. Yeah. So with the forums, oh, there's Yvonne. Okay, $126. Yeah. Now, if we look at this is an interesting topic, euthanasia costs. So 120, that would be American, Yvonne. So again, that would be about $200 here in Australia. So it seems like Australian pricing is sort of falling in with the rest of the world. But what you can look at with euthanasia is two things. We've had a lot of euthanasia where wildlife is concerned, because 1 in 3 wildlife calls, the animal is so in such a state that euthanasia is the right outcome for that animal, so that even if we had it survive, it could not go back to the wild. So euthanasia is the reason this is looked at. So with wildlife, they look at, or they did in the past, it was the weight of the animal. That's how they based the cost. So if you were, for example, euthanizing a horse, it might be $400. If you were euthanizing a guinea pig, which is relatively tiny, or a bird, it might be 20 or 10, or, you know, relative to size. But it seems now that the vets are actually moving more in line with time frame, how much time it takes to euthanize. So in terms of an appointment that's given to a person with a dog, a cat, a horse, they're allocating a time frame to that, which is one reason that the costs may be sort of falling more into line. In terms of their actual costs, there's a little bit more medication given as per the size and weight of the animal. So there's no difference in terms of how it's given, where it's given. It's just a little bit more of that. Again, sorry, Vicky. Vicky says she had 2 guinea pigs and they were sisters. We lost her sister 16 months ago and lost Buffy Friday, just gone. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, so any more questions? Oh, she died holding a finger. Yeah. Sparkle knew I was with her. Definitely. Animals do respond to you being with them. Absolutely. Yeah, when I lost Snowy, now that was early in 21. Snowy was way over 10. He was closer to 11 years of age, and he was very much seen right throughout our certainly Facebook and YouTube videos and so on. He's in lots of things, so he'll be well remembered. But with Snowy, he was absolutely fine. There was nothing to indicate an issue. And literally, I was at the kitchen and I heard this high noise, sort of a hiss. And I thought, what is that? And I walked over and he was on his side. He literally had gone on his side. And he was making this strange noise. He literally had fallen. I picked him up and literally took him in. And within a minute or two, he went. It was very, very fast. But again, he was very, very elderly. He was the guinea pig that kept going. He was amazing. So yeah, we've had lots of guinea pigs that are elderly. But yeah, that's what happened there. And it is hard. But, you know, in lots of ways too, you know, despite losing Sparkle, which was devastating, absolutely devastating when she was so close. And, you know, we've got to think of the loss of the young as well, because we lost all of them. It's nice to know that she did not go on her own, that she was comforted, that she was put in the best position for breathing, that we're you know, in the short time, which was about 9 minutes that we had, she knew someone was with us. So yeah, yeah, that's what happens. So okay, so in terms of we've had quite a discussion this morning, haven't we? And I think everyone's enjoying this time frame a whole lot more as well, which is great. We have lots in the shelter. We have a massive load here, and we have a massive surrender list, so longer than both my arms. So yeah, we're very, very busy. We had another crazy adoption day on Saturday, which was really, really warm, hot, and then it ended in a massive storm at the end. Not as bad as the little tornado that came through, but certainly within 10 minutes we had things packed down and away, and we were drenched, absolutely drenched. So yeah, this crazy weather we're having. Yeah, so thank you all for your support and for your thoughts with Sparkle. If you do happen to see comments in that area, feel welcome to respond to them with kindness. I always recommend with kindness. And again, coming back to, I guess, that, you know, people saying they can't afford a vet, please respond with kindness, because every situation is different. Just to touch on that, we had a lady who had a guinea pig that she did do the right thing. She did go to a vet. It did cost an enormous amount. She was told it would then be thousands of dollars, which she couldn't afford. And she found me. I was actually able to fix this little guy, and he's still alive today. This is about 2 years on. He's doing well. But and it was more time and patience and knowing, you know, different skills and how that can be done. But in terms of what she was going through, she had the loss of her own child just recently, only months before. So you never know someone's full story, and just respond with kindness. So you don't know what's going on in the background there. So when they do come into the forums and they have issues like that, that's also why we have the health days here. We don't ask for anything. We charge nothing for the health days. Absolutely, because I don't want that to be a stopping block for anyone to seek advice on what we would recommend. And we've had a number of people come here where guinea pigs have literally gone straight to the vet and been euthanized. I think that's happened twice, So they were so severe, but they didn't know what to do, and a lot of emotion and confusion around that, as well as questions about costs. But first point of call is a vet. But if you hear people saying they can't afford a vet, then respond with kindness. But yeah, please point out things like vet pay, and there are options, or reach out to rescues and so on. Yeah, for advice. Okay, so thank you everyone for following along. I'll leave the Sparkle stream up, and I'll put an amended heading in there, so for anyone watching can understand what's going on. I found it interesting. Sorry, I keep deviating, don't I? I'm so sorry. I'm in a talkative mood today. But I found it interesting. Someone contacted me yesterday, and they said, "Oh, I saw your video. What happened to Sparkle?" That's like, did you see the video? So the reason we have them there is to actually watch them from beginning to end, because obviously the ending of that is very different to how it started. So yeah, that's a new one for me. So anyway, thank you everyone, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much, and thank you for reaching out the other night, especially to Rotating Koala. And we will be back next Tuesday. We were today going to have a chat with a capybara. Not specifically with the capybara, but a capybara owner. But we're going to do that next week. So I'll see you next Tuesday for the live chat, and look forward to seeing you then. Take care, everyone. If you are seeing this later on, please put your comments, questions down below, because I'll come back to them. And I'd ask everyone who's here, we've got a large number of people here at the moment on 2 platforms, but please put a thumbs up on this and share it out so that we can help others. Okay, take care, be kind, and see you soon. Bye for now.